Hello everyone, this is G and I'm back with another video. So as you probably may have seen from other videos, in particular Clownfish TV, I'm going to be addressing Pedro Pascal's quite offensive, it was an Instagram post, I was about to say a tweet, it was actually an Instagram post, right? Where he compared the, I would say, alleged loss of Donald Trump losing the election to the Confederates losing the Civil War, right? And then of course the Nazi Party losing in 1945, right, or rather being defeated at the end of World War II, right? So first, let me just briefly address the supposed outcomes thus far of the election. Whether you are for Biden or against, whether you are Trump or against, I think that no one should be celebrating yet or conceding defeat yet. Either way. Gotta loves the city. Gotta loves the city. But anyway, I was saying, I don't think anybody should be conceding defeat yet or celebrating victory. I have seen too many times in sports people who think they've got the win, and then a play is overturned, a decision's overturned, and then suddenly they didn't win after all, right? Never celebrate until the victory is confirmed. And in my opinion, victory for either man or defeat for either man will only be confirmed on January 20th, 2021, which is when the president gets sworn into office. So either it will be Trump being sworn in for 4 more years, or it will be Biden being sworn in for 4 years, assuming he's even still alive by that point. Because let's be honest, most people think he's going to die soon, and that Kamala will take over. Let's just call a spade spade. I don't want the man to die, but I'm just saying that's what people are anticipating. But regardless, uh, excuse me, my neck hurts. I'm dealing with a slight headache here, so apologies if I sound a bit off. But anyway, until then, nobody should be celebrating anything or admitting to any defeat. If Trump wants to challenge the results, let him, in my opinion. I very rarely advocate for a person to die on a hill, as it were, but he's the president, you know. They have to prove basically that he has no means or legal recourse or legal reason, right? So if he wants to challenge, let him challenge. To be honest, I do think that there is some shenanigans going on with the electoral vote, especially since, let's be honest here, the Dems, were contesting and complaining about Trump's administration for 4 years, saying it was illegitimate. They tried to prove Russian collusion, that fell on its face. They tried to impeach him, that didn't work. And now, and here's the biggest thing for me. Now, look, I'm not going to act as if I am, especially knowledgeable of the electoral votes or the process or how that works, or of all the various accusations of voter fraud. I have something about something called Dominion, and apparently it like miscounted 6,000 Trumps for Biden, 6,000 votes for Biden, or something to that effect. Again, I'm not too knowledgeable of exactly what the accusations are, so I can't address that, but I will say this much. As someone who is fairly knowledgeable about history, number one, the media can get things wrong, right? If you are familiar with the history behind the 1948 elections, for example, the Chicago Tribune, which at the time was a conservative Republican newspaper, thought that Dewey, who was the Republican candidate running up against Harry Truman, who was the Democratic candidate, right? They thought he was going to win, right? It was projected at that time that it was basically going to be a landslide, a runaway, and that Dewey was going to win. So they printed, over 100,000 copies of, Dewey defeats Truman, and guess what happened? Truman won. It ended up being a much closer contest than people anticipated at that time, and Harry Truman ended up winning. And of course, he has that iconic picture of him standing with the newspaper, like, "See that? You guys got it wrong." So again, don't celebrate before you win. Don't celebrate before you win, and don't give up until it can be definitively proven that you've lost. That's the way I see it. That's the way I see it. Because they can get it wrong. And dear Associated Press, please stop putting all these. The AP has called the election underneath videos. I don't care what the AP thinks. I don't care what the Associated Press says. You are part of the mainstream media. I trust the mainstream media about as far as I can throw it, and I can throw pretty damn far. So, I don't care if you've called the election. You're not a legal entity. You're not the Supreme Court. You have no say over what the final determination is, what the final outcome is. So, and here's the thing: the Associated Press might be right. They might be. I'm not going to say it's impossible for Biden to win, but yeah, nothing's confirmed yet. So I think the media should just shut up, right? Say he's the projected winner. Not say, oh, we've called this election, because again, Dewey defeats Truman. If it can happen once, it can happen again, right? Now, another thing about this election that I do find surprising, curious and curious, as the saying would go, is that number one, the Democrats, again, as I said earlier, argued that Trump's win was illegitimate, and they've been arguing that for 4 years. They argued that the Electoral College needed to go because, according to them, Hillary won the popular vote, but she didn't win enough of the electoral votes. Yet, suddenly, when Biden apparently has won like 290 electoral votes to Trump's 2014, and I will admit, I do find that questionable, and I'll get to that in a moment. But when the results, more or less, are in their favor, suddenly it's, oh, the Electoral College is fine. It's working fine. No fire here. No problem here. Just, you know, concede defeat. We're okay now. I don't like that. I don't like that type of behavior, right? That whole, when it works for the opposition, it's a flaw, but when it works in my favor, right? When it works in my favor, suddenly there's no problem here. If it's a problem for them, that means it's a problem for you. So there is that. And the second thing is that you want me to believe that Biden has 290 electoral votes and Trump is still stuck at 214? That's probably for me the biggest thing where I'm like, you know what, if Trump wants to challenge it, let him. Because I just find that incredibly difficult to believe for me personally. And again, I'm apolitical. I don't care if Trump wins. I don't care if Biden wins. Whoever is sworn in January, has one hell of a task ahead of them. My whole thing is, like anyone else, I want the process to be done as fairly as possible, right? I want the game to be played fairly. Even if I have no interest in the game, that doesn't mean that I think cheating should be allowed. And if they want to, check everything and do recounts, fine, let them. They did something similar, what was it, Bush Gore back in 2000, the whole hanging Chad thing, right? So if we have to go through this to, make sure that everything at least appears to be on the up and up, I'm fine with it, especially since I do find it hard to believe that Joe Biden, of all people, would have nearly 300, right, 290, so it's literally 10 under 300 electoral votes, while Trump's count hasn't moved since election day. It's still at 214. I was just reading a news article and had this banner at the bottom, right? It said Biden 290 and Trump, excuse me, Trump 214. I'm like, really? After several days, and you guys still counting and polling places are reporting? You're telling me none of those came in? Not a one came in for Trump? His count hasn't changed at all. But Biden's keeps getting larger and larger and larger. That's the part where I'm like, okay, something ain't right here. Something seems weird. Something seems fishy. So again, you know, if you want to, check the process to make sure that it's working properly, that no one's on either side is cheating, go ahead, right? Whoever wins, whoever is the winner, will be sworn in January 20th, and whoever that person is has the unenviable task of leading a very angry, divided nation in a very turbulent, uncertain time. So regardless of who it is, good luck, because you're gonna need it. So there's that, right? So, oh, and one more thing. I am especially tired, and this will tie into Pedro's very offensive, uh, now deleted Twitter post here, but I am especially tired of people with the divisive, hateful rhetoric. Whoopi Goldberg apparently uh, called 71 or 70 some million uh, uh, Trump supporters out of their name. Apparently, there have been people online saying that, basically, if you voted Trump, right, which is 70 some million people voted for him, apparently, that if you voted Trump, then you're a racist. That is simply factually untrue, and that is hateful, bigoted fear mongering, in my opinion. And I detest and despise any type of statements like that. I don't care whether they come from the Democrats or the Republicans. If anybody who's anti-Biden says, well, if you voted Biden, you must hate America, or if you voted Biden, you must hate black people, or you hate colored people, whatever. Still a dumb statement, still hateful, still bigoted, right? To claim that 70 some million people who voted opposite you are not just wrong. You want to say, hey, you made the wrong choice. That's one thing. But to say that you are a social ill, right? That you are that they are hateful, that the other side is hateful for no other reason than you don't think, or rather they didn't side with you. That is just disgusting rhetoric, in my opinion. And when I hear about disgusting rhetoric, I'm going to call it out. So yeah, Whoopi, that's disgusting rhetoric. Maxine Waters, lashing out in particular at black men who happen to vote Trump. That's disgusting rhetoric. They have the right to vote for whoever they want to. You don't have the right to control them. They vote for whoever they want. It's not your place to tell them what to do, Maxine. You're not their grandmother. You're not their great grandmother. Even if you were, respect their autonomy as grown ass people. Their choice. You don't have to agree with it, but there's no need to shame them. So Maxine, disgusting rhetoric, right? And many others, including Pedro here. Absolutely disgusting, hateful, bigoted rhetoric. I don't say these things because they're Democrat or liberal leaning. I don't care. I say it because these are the things they have said. And my evaluation of these type of statements is it is bigoted, it is hateful, it is fear mongering. And I cannot stand that type of trash, quite frankly. I find that type of thing just to be plain trash. If you cannot make your argument based on its own strengths, if you can't make your argument on its own worth, based on its own strengths, then shut the hell up. Because the moment that you start attacking people and calling them evil, right, you've officially lost the plot and you've done nothing to help your argument. So please, if you can't argue your argument on its own merits, shut up. Please shut the hell up, as Chris Jericho would say. Now, on to Pedro. On to Pedro. First of all, Pedro says Pedro Pascal is punk. No, you're not, Pedro. No, you're not. You're a Disney actor. You're a Disney actor who's become a diva. Your head has outgrown the Mandalorian's helmet, and now it can't fit because your ego, right? So the little song, "Fame takes a man and makes him hollow." Fame, right, makes him hard to swallow. That's what you're suffering from, Pedro. Fame. Listen to some David Bowie and learn. You are suffering from fame. It's making you a very difficult person to like, right? So first of all, when you go mainstream, you are not a punk anymore, and you don't go more mainstream than working for Disney and being a diva about it. Besides, Gina Carano and Baby Yoda are more popular than you. Number one. Number two, all the real punks are either dead or in jail, right? And let's see here. Anybody who claims to be punk and is not dead or in jail either sold out or grew up. And I'll give you three chances which one that you are, Pedro. Three guesses which one you fall into because you sure as hell didn't grow up. A mature adult doesn't post something like this, like you did here, and then took down. And then took down. Let's not forget that. So, uh, you obviously did not grow up, so there's only one option left. Huh, I wonder. But anyway, now the image itself, right? First of all, I would have thought that this would have gotten in trouble because, to my understanding, the Confederate flag and certainly the Nazi symbol are considered symbols. Excuse me. Are considered symbols of hatred, right? They're officially hate symbols. So I'm surprised he was even allowed to even post this, although eventually he did take it down. But of course, you know, what it says here is losers in 1865 showing the Confederate flag, losers in 1945 showing the Nazi Party symbol, and then losers in 2020 showing a Make America Great Again hat. Well, first of all, Pedro, I think you need a bit of a history lesson because see the top part is a self-own because you see the Confederacy, right, originally started out as, get this, the Southern Democrats. They were the Southern Democrats, and because they wanted to, you know, have states' rights respected, they didn't want to give up uh, slavery because it was a huge part of their economy, a huge part of their culture. They seceded from the Union. And it caused this very painful time in American history called the Civil War, right? And the Union Army, which was led by the president of the country at the time, you know, Abraham Lincoln, who was a Republican. Yeah, you know, the Union won. The president ultimately won. And again, Lincoln, a Republican, freed the slaves. He freed the slaves. A Republican president freed the slaves, while it was Southern Democrats who tore the country apart because they wanted to hold on to slavery. Now, am I going to say that modern day Democrats uh, share these same views? Of course not. That would not be fair or reasonable. But if you're going to post something like this, at least do a wiki search. Because that top part right there is just one giant self-own. As I've said in other previous videos, you know, the African Americans, right, used to vote majority conservative, used to be majority Republican, because of the fact that it was a Republican who freed the slaves. Right, so there's that. And then, you know, losers in 1945. Yeah, US politics and German politics, not the same. But here's a bigger thing, right? It says losers in 2020. He's equating Trump and Trump supporters in the Trump administration to Nazism and the Confederacy, right? To governments that sincerely did hurt people, that did oppress people, that not just endorsed or agreed with or believed in slavery, or in the case of, you know, the Nazis, you know, trying to create a Aryan race and, you know, killing off all the Jews in all of Europe and quite possibly the world. That was their ultimate goal. And all that, right? So he's trying to equate, you know, sincere governments that were once in power, right? That oppressed people, that killed people, that stripped away the rights of people to a president who's a loudmouth and who they don't like. You don't have to like Trump. I'm not a big fan of him, and he's from Queens, New York, just like me, although I don't think we're from the same part of Queens. Queens is a big place. He's not exactly the biggest. I'm no fan of him. Never have been. To me, he's always going to be a New York socialite and personality. So my disdain or disagreement with him stems nothing from politics and everything prior to that. But still, there's nothing about his administration that brings anything close to the Confederacy or the Nazis. He did not repeal the the uh, the amendment that freed the slaves. He did not take that away. He did not repeal the amendment that gave women the vote, right? Or anything of that sort. He certainly didn't try to round up whole groups of people. He didn't say, hey, this religious group or that racial group or that racial group, you know, uh, uh, is now evil. We're going to blame all of the country's problems on them and round them up and ship them off to die. He certainly didn't do that. I don't think there would have been so